Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Live with Ty. Better please.
We all know him pretty well.
And you guys are so excited. I was thinking,
Live with Ty starts now.
Now, this episode is the first of its kind. Today, live in studio, we are joined by an athlete turned BU professor. Crazy, right? But here on Live with Ty, you can always expect the unexpected. Please welcome BU alum and current BU professor Monique Kelley.
Hello, everybody.
So to get your journey started off, you wanted to be, or your dad was a bodybuilder, correct?
Yes.
But you wanted to follow in his footsteps, but you couldn't get past the bio class at BU. I know that's a tough one, but yeah.
It's tough, but I've learned to embrace the whole point of failing and pivoting. So yeah, my father was Mr. New Jersey. He was Mr. USA, huge bodybuilder.
Wow.
He actually was going to be at that point it was called WWF, before it was called WWE, wrestler. And a lot of the guys wanted him to pursue that. And he reminds my sister and I that the only reason why he didn't do it was because he wanted to be a father, and he recognized that by doing that he would be on the road and really leave my mom with my sister and I. But I think what it was my mother would be like, hell no, you're definitely not going to be a wrestler, and leave me behind with two kids. But,
yeah, but then that also asks the question, like, going into wrestling, like, real or fake, what do you think about it?
I mean, it's real in terms of the
when your dad's doing
athleticism. Well, when my dad's doing it,
like,
it's
oh,
real. It's 100% real. No. It's real because of the athleticism. It's not real in terms of the storylines.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure your dad didn't tell you that growing up, though.
No, because I know a lot about wrestling. You would not know from looking at me that I know a lot. I've been to, what is it called? The Super Slam, Summer Slam, and all of those things. So yeah, I've had a lot of experience with wrestling and with wrestlers. Surprisingly.
Well, speaking of experience, right now you have an LLC and with your PR agency company, right? How did you stumble into that? Really impressive stuff what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, really, I wish I had this plan laid out. And I tell my students all the time that, so I failed this pre-med bio class, could not be a nutritionist. I was in the College of Arts and Sciences. And when that happened, I just needed to pivot to make sure that I graduated with a degree.
Okay.
And so my best friend, who was my college track team roommate at the time, was involved in comm and PR.
Yeah.
So I said, sure, because if you're doing it, and she's like, yeah, you're a great writer, you love to talk, you can, I'm sure, be good at this class. And so I thought it was just take a class, get a degree, and be done. But in fact, it was the same class that I took that I now teach, one of them that I now teach, a media class that I felt, wow, for the first time, I actually understand what this is about. It's not a theory class, it's not abstract, it's literally teaching me a job. And that's how I ended up getting into communications in general after BU. I wish, again, I had this grand plan that, I told myself I would go to New York City all my life.
Well, you ended up doing that.
I ended up doing that less than a month after graduation, and it was because I had bills to pay. It was around COVID time when I was adjuncting, and my professor retired and basically said, would you like to be the public relations student society, Professor Steve Quigley. He retired. And he said, do you want to be the Public Relations Student Society of America faculty advisor? And I was like, oh, that's awesome, because he was my advisor when I was on the e-board. I said, oh, the full circle, this is wonderful. And he said, well, you actually have to be a professor to do that. And I was like, okay, sounds good.
Might as well.
So I feel very privileged that for so many people, their lifelong mission is academia. And for me, I felt that I had value in going back to where I discovered public relations to help teach the next generation. One, you don't have to have it all figured out. You don't even need a good GPA, but you do need to be curious. You do need to be hungry. And how can I help contribute that to people who are starting off in their career? Full-time professor is not 40 hours a week. I'm used to 50. And when I was in New York, it was like 50, 60, go, go, go. So to answer your question, it was the LLC that I was able to open while I was a professor. So I was starting fresh as a full-time professor, day one of being a business owner, and just juggling these two jobs for about 2.5 years now.
In terms of forming your own company, it's really successful what you've been able to do. What's the hardest part where there was moments where you're like, I don't know if this is going to work out?
Yeah, so in the beginning, you don't know what to expect. So when I first was opening this thing, I didn't even know how to open it. I was like, I don't know. So I asked 3 friends of mine who were also people in New York, PR agency people who are now consultants. And I said, how do you do this? And they gave me some tips and, shared with me what to do. And that helped me feel better that like, you don't have to worry so much about the business ownership as a solopreneur.
Yeah.
You just have to worry about getting clients. And I know how to do that. I'm like, well, I got plenty of friends.
Yeah.
I'm big on
Quite social.
relationships. I'm very social,
Very
just like my
social.
best friend said. So it was a lot of me going to people I knew and just saying, heads up, I'm about to leave my company in 3 weeks and I'm going to start consulting. And I got this other gig as a full-time professor. So if you want to guest speak for my students, I'm sure they're going to appreciate that. But also if I can do whatever comms consulting for you or your executives, here's what I do. And I was very clear on those areas that I really am passionate about in terms of communications. And here's what I'm thinking about. And I just remember a few friends saying, great, what's your rate? Let's go. And so before I left my company, the last day, I had 2 clients lined up and still a lot of anxiety even about the teaching.
Another thing that I want to talk to, so here at Live with Ty, we focus on a lot of athletes. You ran
Yeah.
track here at BU,
Yes.
right? What, I guess, core values from being a track athlete have you used in your professional career? And do you miss it at all?
Yeah.
running?
Oh, I 100% miss it. I was just on the tee, and I got off at Packard's Corner. So I'm now rehabbing an injury. It never
Okay.
ends. I was rehabbing injury back then. I'm rehabbing injury now.
Dude, injuries, they're
I'm
pretty-
always
they're pretty common.
injured. It's just like I'm probably more injured than I am actually on a team. I got off at Packard's Corner to go to where their physical therapy center is, and I immediately text that best friend again. This is where we used to go for this or for that. Just those memories of being on the track team. Because as you know from being an athlete, when you're on a team, these aren't just teammates. These are your lifelong friends.
Correct.
This is your world.
Okay,
Yes.
so she's also known as Crazy Eyes. What was
Yeah.
it like? Because there's a different side that you get to see working with a person like that. I see your
Yes.
face lights up. Were you guys
I
close
love
at all? or-
Uzo. So Uzo has been one of the most consistent people. She's the
Okay.
exact same person consistently as she was running track as a sprinter at
Yeah.
BU. And so I'll always remember. So going back to Astoria, she also lived in Astoria. That's where the studios were. She
Okay.
was off Broadway at the time when I was kind of coming through the ranks on the agency side. And I remember this was right when Netflix started, right?
Wow.
So Orange is the New Black. And so I was
Perfect
waiting
timing.
on the subway stop platform, E-Line, blue, and then all of a sudden I see a picture of her. And I was so naive, and I'm still pretty naive when it comes to her and what she's doing. I was
Yeah.
like, Uzo, and I remember calling her. I'm like, why is your picture on a sign? And she said, oh, I'm in the show. And she explained to me about the show and about jail and Crazy Eyes and all this stuff. I just remember my best friend and I going to see her show on Broadway.
Yeah.
She headlined her show recently, so this was maybe a couple of years ago in January. It was cold in New York.
Yeah.
But we went. And I remember talking with her and getting like all of the pictures and the paparazzi and the tabloids. And I'm thinking the whole time, God, I hope nothing's in my teeth or in my hair. Like literally people are like swarming us.
Yeah.
And I remember in her almost like, she always had a stage presence. So in her
Okay.
voice, she was just like,
when you're an actor, you kind of have
these
to.
are my teammates. And everyone was just clapping. And I was like, this is pretty cool being your friend. But yeah, I think the world of her, as she knows. And my husband even, we were dating at the time. And she's always asking me, how's Joe? That's always the first thing that she wants to know. So
So that's something you guys definitely still keep in contact.
yeah, absolutely. When we can. And,
Yeah,
and
of
when I
course.
can see her. I don't see her as much as I'd like to. She was on a book tour when I was traveling. But yeah,
Well, definitely. I mean, speaking of books, you have a book that's coming out yourself.
At
right?
some point.
It's called, yeah, at some point. I mean, do you have
Still ready.
any idea of maybe when, or it's called relationship-based networking?
Yeah.
And it's about leveraging the different networks you have. Which is, I
Absolutely.
think, is a skill that a lot of people have.
Yes.
It's but making friends, being social, stuff like that. But it's hard to turn the corner and
Right.
kind of leverage those without feeling like you're using people. So tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about your book and then what you hope its effect can be on the people that are going to read it.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I'm writing it now, and I'm really excited. It is due to the publisher in a few months, so I'm like,
Okay.
oh boy, the pressure's on.
Like
so I'm gonna-
2025?
So it will come out this time next year. So yes,
Okay.
around
Okay.
about a year or so.
Okay, gotcha.
And
You got time.
and so what I'm really excited about is the fact that everything in my career, as I mentioned, was really unplanned.
Yeah.
It was after I wasn't going to be a nutritionist and fell into PR. I didn't really know what to expect from life. And so I just always thought, let me just put good out there. I love relationships. Going back to that Public Relations Student Society of America group that I was in here at BU, the president, I was always like the non-president. Everyone's like, why don't you want to be president? I was like, because I am the person who liaises with the adult professional chapter, i.e. the people with the jobs.
Yeah.
So you all can
And the
have your
pockets as
president
well.
and your VP. I'm going to have the liaison to the PRSA Boston folks.
So smart.
Yeah, because I was like, I need a job.
That's actually genius. Wow.
I mean, again, going back to that hustler and that hunger. But my friend Corey was the president, and she graduated a year before me and was already working at an investor relations firm.
Okay.
IR scares me, numbers scares me. I'm just not good. I'm still the person
We're
looking
twins
at
in
it or
that.
see
We're
like,
twins in that.
yeah, I'm like this. I'm like, how many? I'm gonna make sure I get the tip right so I don't get knocked out. But Corey's company was the one that hired me for my first job out of college, and I handled media relations for this IR firm, and so some of that kept happening in my career. This person would help me with this, or when I'm somewhere, I would pay it forward and help another person get into this job. And so I started to notice how important relationships were, not so much for like getting something from somebody, but more giving to someone and making sure that you're always adding value in some way. I call it earning your keep. And I do that very well. I think sometimes I overly do that with people, but I know that it's going to pay off, whether it's just karma and doing the right thing for someone as they would for me, or in the case of running my business, 100% of my clients are all people that I know. And that's been 2.5 years of no website, no advertising, and just working with friends, which is a blessing.
See, every single time, different perspective. Like, I don't want to give you like super praise, but really impressive stuff.
Thank you.
So we talked about this early before. We started a new section on the show.
Okay.
It's called My Hot Takes. It's called Hot Takes with Ty. These are my hot takes. I stand fervently by them. And you were giving me a little bit of your background, and the first time, I'm starting to feel maybe a little bit guilty. But again, I kind of have to stay true to my word and like put my fist down.
Let's go.
So we're going to run through it. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so for the first one, given that you're a professor within the School of Communications, I think Com 101, having taken it myself, is the worst prerequisite class.
Com 101, I never took it.
You never took it?
I never took it. Because remember, I was too busy failing pre-med bio, withdrawing engineering physics. I think I took accounting and probably flunked that as well.
Okay.
So by the time I stumbled into
So you really stumbled into
fell out.
Doors open.
Fell out.
Let me in.
And then finally, as a junior, I came into comm.
Okay.
So a lot of those 101 courses and things I didn't take because I took other classes that satisfied, I guess, basic prerequisites.
Okay, wow. So this next one, I'm starting to feel a little bit guilty of, but you're an Eagles fan, right?
I mean, I have to be because my father would disown me, but yes.
Okay, well, we want to keep that connection going, but
Okay.
I think Eagles fans are full of themselves and pretty arrogant when it comes to their team.
Yeah.
That's
I
my hot
mean,
take.
They're passionate. I'm passionate. I get it. South Jersey, Philly folks, we understand each other. We're like ride or die types, right?
Okay.
We are
I can
just
sense
passionate
that.
for our team. We'll go all in
All
on
the
our
way.
people. Yes.
Okay. So we'll agree to disagree on that one.
We'll
then.
agree to disagree.
So, and also in another article that we were reading on you, you said that you also you like trap music, correct?
I like all music,
You like
but
all
I like
music.
some hard.
You like-
I go either way. I
Okay.
can go like Van Halen, or I can go like Future or something
Future,
that's
okay.
very inappropriate.
Okay.
And it's funny because I'll listen to it at work. In fact, coming here, I listened to Jay-Z's Dead Presidents, right?
Okay,
So it's like
great album.
Dead Presidents
Yeah.
represent me. What do I have to do listening to that, right? As 43-year-old professor. But for me, again, I think it comes back to who I am. I'm somebody who is very grounded. I know who I am. I know where I come from. And so music like that, and in general, just all music, regardless of the genre, as long as it's, again, that South Jersey passionate, go all in type, I
Hustle
really
type.
tend to gravitate towards that.
When you're going into, let's say, a big meeting with like a top or high level client, do you have like any like, motivational songs?
Yes.
Like in the genre of rap, that's what I'm curious
Yeah.
about, that you might like, okay, this song always gets me going.
It's always the roots. Tariq
Always the
Trotter
Roots.
has been very gracious to me. I met him. I spoke for almost 3 hours with the Roots in person. They invited me to speak. So
Really?
Yes. So that's
Dude,
what I
tell
mean.
them to come here, dude. I'd love to have them on. Like, come on.
I might have to get them in the book, so I have to be
Okay,
careful
okay.
how many favors I ask. But-
Okay, that's
So
fair.
it's always the Roots. Anything by the Roots.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on to show. Your story is amazing, and I really enjoyed getting to know you. Thank
Thank
you so
you,
much.
Tyler. I appreciate
Be
it.
sure to keep up with all things Professor Kelley on LinkedIn, and keep an eye out for her new book called Relationship-Based Networking, coming out next year. If you like what you see, be sure to smash that like and subscribe button to support this production, and comment down below who you want to see next on the show. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, I'm your host, Tyler Johnson.